So thank you for that nice welcome, and thank you all for staying. Because, it's the end of the conference and you're still here. That's great. So a little bit about myself. I wrote a book, Agile Leader, that's the white one. And I also, before that, wrote a book which is called The Great Scrum Master, Dokonali Scrum Master. And if you stay until the end, I have 3 books to give away. The Polish translation, of course. So, I want to start with a story about leadership. My story, how it all started. In 2010, I was given 3 departments, developers, testers, hardware guys, with a goal of building one single department of engineering, we call it later on, with a collaborative space with high flexibility, creativity, innovations, sort of a modern organization, which people love to work for. And I went home, sit at the garden, and I still remember that moment. Like, wow, I can finally change the world. I can do everything. And then it hit me. The picture of 100 people coming to me every day with these questions, queries, decisions. Can you tell me what I should do here? Can you tell me how to solve it? Can you decide on a tool? Can you approve my vacation? And I felt tired. It was like a weather before the storm. I felt like, why do I have to always challenge everything? Like, it's so simple. Just do it as everybody does. Don't challenge things, right? Just have a few managers in that space. Come on, everybody is doing this. So why do I have to change things? And I went to sleep. I felt tired, close to give up. But morning brought new energy. And finally, I got this courage to present a very different structure with self-organizing teams, only Scrum Masters, and no managers. To give you a bit of context, our chairman was a short man, over his 60s, almost no hair, always wearing a suit, very formal. I think he was a very traditional manager. He would have his hierarchy sort of hard-coded in his brain, creating this very formal space around him, aura of a person who could never be wrong. Now, later that week, I was ready with my presentation. He was clearly in a good mood, sitting in front, making jokes everywhere, and then he started. So today, we are here to hear about this engineering structure, huh? So let's hear about your managers. Oh, I don't have any managers. What? Let me start my presentation. So, you're here because we have this goal, right? We want to have this very flexible space, collaborative, which can fast learn and bring innovations to our customers. Is that right? Ah, thank you. So, I did the research and I came up with this, very flat structure where we have these self-organizing teams with only Scrum Masters and no managers in this. So no managers. Yeah, no managers, because I believe that empowerment brings empowerment, and it really gives the motivation to everybody. It's coming from this, agile teams. So you want to make us all agile, huh? Yeah, I thought, let's go for it. At the end of the day, we want to change. That's why we choose you. We believe that might be becoming, modern organization may attract. And I don't remember the rest of that meeting. I just remember he said yes to my super crazy idea. Which was against everything he was. It was against his experience, his values, and he's been fighting with it ever since. But he said yes. And I keep coming back to that moment. Like, why did he say yes to this super crazy idea? Why? And I think the only reason was that I didn't say, hey, we're going to be agile because it's the best. We're going to implement Scrum, which was true, actually. But I actually said we have those goals: flexibility, fast learning, innovations. So my first tip here, agile is not your goal. It's just the best way how to achieve your goals. Like, I truly believe it is the best way. But it's not a goal by itself. So number one reason why organizations are failing their agile so-called transformation is because they never really think about this. What is your goal? Why would you change the way you work? And sometimes the answer to this question is, we don't want to change it. I remember early on my independence career, I was working with very successful Czech organization. Like number one. They've been better than Google in Czech. And I did this one workshop and people loved it and say, can we do more of those workshops? So I went to this VP and asked him, can we do more of those workshops? People would love it. It's like, not sure. They got one, that's enough. It's like, yeah, but their life's gonna be much better. Whatever, put some arguments in. And then he'll look at me and say like, so to put it straight, if you do that workshop or coaching or whatever you're suggesting, name it, does it mean that the owner is going to have another private jet? Maybe not. Maybe not. I was not sure. I could not make adjustment for my work to another private jet for such a successful organization. And he said, we have no problem. People love to work here. We have a queue of new employees waiting until we hire them. We are better than Google. So why do we have to change? They don't. And maybe you may argue that if they change that time, they might still be number one. Now, actually, a couple years back, Google is the number one, not that company. But they're still successful, so not a big deal. So, agile is not your goal. But you need to figure out, why do we have to change? For me, at that time, there was flexibility, fast learning, innovations. And the real reason was business. Our customers need it. It was not because we like it for whatever reason, but it was a necessity. Unless we change, we might not be here a few years from now. So how that change looks like. Let's imagine you have this very important reason. My best client for Agile Transformation is the company who is already looking down the cliff, like this. It's like, we might not be here 5 years from now. We have to change. And I also love the organization who already tried to change, like this. Still the same? No change really happening? But we have to change. And then they are ready. So this is a traditional organization with all that hierarchy, right? Now, the organizational change starts usually small. Small islands, tiny things, those dots. It could be self-organization. It could be team spirit. It could be more formal than that, Scrum, Kanban, something. You start experimenting and start doing things differently. At first, it feels really weird. It's not that fun. You're scared. You're afraid. It's painful. But eventually, you figure out a better way of working and start liking it. And think, hey, we work as teams. And the more that grows, the more there is this disconnect. It's like a washing machine. It's really ugly, constantly moving. And you have those original processes, leaders who might need some more teams, and it's all sort of moving and moving and moving and moving and stuff. But then, the most common question I was getting during this phase, the chairman of a board I was telling you about, he was always like going to my office saying, hey, who is responsible? I just want to ask you, who is responsible? And that's a tough question. The team is. Yeah, but the team can't be responsible for everything. So I give it a thought. So, well, maybe at the end of the day, I'm responsible. No, you can't be responsible for everything. So we have this never-ending conversation about this old world where you have this individual responsibility, clear goals and objectives, clear roles, and this new world. And part of it is he sort of liked this new world. He was fascinated by it. He felt he's younger by joining us, but he still got those tens of years of experience and knowledge with this world. Very difficult to overcome. What we try to do, we try to bring him along and invite him, and for some period of time it was working pretty well, actually. If you're lucky, those dots from a previous picture, they click and they connect. And you end up with this Agile Organization, collaborative, creative, adaptive network. Now, when I start explaining what the Agile Organization is, I draw this picture on a flip chart and talking about those networks, but it's too techy for most of the people. So I eventually end up stealing this metaphor from Steve Denning and saying the traditional organization is really a tanker boat. You have a captain, and the captain gives orders, and all the others follow. That's what the traditional organization is about. Hierarchy, clear roles, responsibilities, defined roles, processes. The new organization, we are building this Agile organization, is more like a flotilla of small boats. So there is an autonomy in decision making. There is an emergent distributed leadership. We don't have that one captain anymore. The risk, though, is that if you don't put one very strong purpose to that flotilla, it will go to various different locations. It will not work. Not at all. So, flotilla of small boats. Everybody can make their own decisions. We're going to do this today and this tomorrow. And that's how we're going to solve this issue right now. But we are all going to that direction. And you might already see that it's very difficult to do, but there is one prerequisite that leaders need to change first. The organization will follow. But I need to tell you, when I say leaders, I don't mean managers. I would call it managers if that's what I wanted to say. So everyone here is a leader. It's only your decision, if you're ready, to take the ownership and responsibility and step front and say, I want to achieve something. I have this dream. I want to have this flat organization with only Scrum Masters and no managers. And wait, what happened? They could have told me, no, sorry, that's not why we choose you. And I could try and give up. They didn't at that time. I was lucky, I guess. But you usually got lucky. If you have this dream, you very often got lucky. So it's on you. Don't wait for somebody else. No one else is going to change your organizations. Before that, I was a Scrum Master, by the way. And before that, I was a developer. The developer who didn't want to become Scrum Master, but sort of happened to me. And then I didn't want to become manager, it sort of happened to me, right? So just be ready and say yes to opportunity. Have your dream. So I want to give you one challenge here. What do you think is the most important for you as a leader to change on your Agile journey? So I want to give you 1 minute to talk to your neighbor in this space. You all should have some neighbor. If you're 3 of you sitting there, that's fine. Keep talking. But think about, what is it? What is the most important one thing for me as a leader to change on myself on my Agile journey? 1 minute. And by the way, never let people talk before you tell them a signal how to get them back. So once you see me raise my hand, That's the signal. All right, 1 minute, talk about this. And I want to get back your attention. So, for everybody here, it might be something different. For me, it was let go. Let go the details. I felt I have to understand everything, I have to know everything. But it's not possible. If you want to give away the autonomy, you don't know about everything anymore. And you have to trust people. And that was a long journey. For you, it's going to be something different. So people usually feel like I have this square instead of my head and I don't know how it should work. Like the chairman of the board, he didn't know how that should work. It was so much against all of those things he knew. But it was working, at least seems to be working. So how? So we start from a top, the system point of view. Imagine you're standing on that observation tower, 10,000 feet distance. And all you can do from that top, you don't see those details anymore. You don't know everything. You don't hear every tiny conversation. But all you can do is to listen to the voice of a system, sort of. The organization as a system. So you might see, hey, here is some happiness going around. And here is some frustration over there. There is quiet space. Nothing seems to be happening. And then all that is sort of moving. But you don't know why is that happening. You don't know what is happening. You just have that sense. So that's listening to that voice of a system, but mentally you need to be 10,000 feet distance. In that place, you're disattached. You're not part of it. You see it, you hold it, but you're not that tiny person anymore inside. You're outside. The second rule of the system point of view would be who knows what is right and what is not. And that's the hardest. Through the whole education system, we've been learned this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. You got A, you got F. Fired. Congratulations. Well, in a system theory, if you start seeing the entire organization as a system, as a relationship system, there is no right, no wrong exists in a way. They're just different perspectives. So I want to tell you a story about one of my clients. It's a company on their Agile journey for many years. I would say 10 years now. They started with one team. The other teams sort of like it, so they start copying, trying, experimenting, failing, growing. Eventually, we end up with the entire software part of that organization running Scrum, having Scrum Masters, product owners. Then we start talking to the managers, if they should embrace those values a little more, make maybe the other parts of the organization part of this. Eventually, I was talking to a group of owners. And they started that company like 35 years ago together. And they said, we have a problem. We don't know how to lead this organization anymore. They are self-organized now. What shall we do? How can we make a decision now? Because if we decide there, we break that self-organization. If we don't decide, we don't put a direction. They see it very black and white. So somewhere on that journey, they thought, hey, we are now having a team of product owners. That's great. It was actually a very dysfunctional team, and we've been talking about it many times. But they say, it's a team. We are Agile Organization, so let's give them their salary for a year and let them distribute it. Yeah, they're a team, right? We are Agile now. So they did. On Friday, that team of 6 product owners make the only decision which was ever possible in that space, meaning we distribute equally. It was even expected from the owners because that's how they always distribute the bonus. Well, on Monday, the 2 of them came back and say, well, I don't agree with that because the 2 of them were not working as great as the other 2, and we don't want the money for us. We actually returned them back to the company. It was a very ugly conflict. So most of us would say it was a bad decision to give them that bonus distributed. They were not ready for that. It was bad that no one facilitated, and it was a bad conflict emerging from it. From the system point of view, we say, oh, how fascinating. Interesting. What's next? So what happened next was actually quite fascinating. The owners of the company, for the first time ever I work with them, very soon agrees, we have to make a change. And actually behind this was the CEO who actually supported 2 against the other 2. We should fire him. We talked about it for 2 years already, and they were like, we don't know, we don't like this guy, but he's not that bad. He was out in a month. Now, they also very soon agrees on a new CEO who shifted that organization to some better place. Now, all over, was it a good or was it bad? Long run, it was actually a very good event. Temporarily, might not. However, those 2 and 2 who's been in that conflict, they learned they can solve it. It was very painful, very difficult, but they learned how to solve it. From a system complex relationship perspective, from that point of view, there is no right, no wrong. Just different perspectives. Who knows what is right and what is wrong? And then the last one is particularly important, and it took me a long time to embrace. Everyone is right, but only partially. So there is always like 2% of truth on each perspective. Particularly important if you start working with a bigger systems like teams, but also a group of teams and organizations. If there is a 2% of truth everywhere, can I see it? Can I name it? Can I do it? I was working with one Scrum Master. He was sent to a very dysfunctional team. The first day he was sent there because the previous Scrum Master sort of says, I'm out. I don't want to solve this problem. It's too big for me. I'm just frustrated. So he joined and said, I know about this problem. We've been talking about this, and I have the energy to solve it. I think some of us can relate, right? You go to the no way environment, and you have this energy and belief you're going to make it. And then actually we have a call like next week. And he was already telling me, well, I can't stand them. They're so annoying. And specifically this person. And I was like, hey, hold on. You're here as a Scrum Master. You wanted to solve this conflict for them. But that's the first step for it. You need to see everybody brings the value, and you need to see the positivity in all of them. Can you do that? He said, I'm not sure if I can do that. Because she's just wrong and he's just right. So it took us several sessions to help him to see that system view of that team and be able to name what is the good thing, the good service, the value each individual is bringing to the team. And actually then he was able to solve that issue by letting it emerge to them and coaching them through this. But it starts with you. Everyone is right, but only partially. Now, If you decide to be on this journey and have a dream, that vision, I want to achieve something, right, in my organization. I want to get this flat structure. So that vision is the key. You need to be able to explain it in a way that people sort of care about it. And it brings that motivation, but also what I learned on my journey, the most important part was that feedback. And it's not about giving others feedback. You're not following what I said. That's not really helpful. But it was getting feedback. Because I was on that journey with them. And I think that was the one thing which saved me, that we were a very open culture. Everybody came back and say, when I screw up and make a decision instead of a team, well, just a day before I was telling them, you need to make your own decisions, but then I took it from them. Right after, somebody came back in my office, and usually there were several different people telling me, hey, what he just did was not really cool. And you were actually not acting as you're telling us. You were not consistent. So what I did when I hear it, it was surprising because I didn't do it intentionally. I thought I'm behaving exactly that way as I'm supposed to, but I was not. Actually, I was doing the exact opposite. Under the stress, I was going to the old habits, even if I thought I don't have them anymore. So what I did when it happens, I show up in front of everybody again, next day, next morning, next hour, and say, hey, I'm sorry. I got this feedback. Thank people who deliver it to me. And I realized what I did. And I also know why I did it. And I'll try not to do it again. I'm on that journey with you. And I apologize. It actually worked really well. So that consistency. You don't have to be perfect. But you need to be true to what you're saying. So vision, motivation, feedback, they are sort of interconnected as a core. If you don't have that dream, if you don't have that vision, it will never start. But if you're not listening for that feedback, you don't change. Then on this side, we have this side and, that side, sorry, it's mirror. This side and collaborate. So decision making is very simple for managers. They got used to it. While collaborating is not. So some of us we need to learn how to collaborate. Well, for example, Agile coaches, they would be good. And Scrum Masters, they would be really good at collaboration usually, but not good at decision making. And sometimes it's a good time to make a decision. Be clear about that, but decide. So those two are sort of connected. On the other side, you have this coaching and facilitation, soft skills, right? When I started, I didn't know what that is. I thought coaching is completely useless. So my next biggest learning was actually go to that professional coaching, professional facilitation, one class each year, and continue that journey. Still learning, right? And then finally, the change. Changing through becoming a role model, changing yourself, changing me. Be consistent. Changing through implementing some processes, practices, tools, working with the other people, and changing through working with the entire system. So at the end of the day, you really need to be good at all of those, but the first thing is that dream. And I don't like to call it that vision that much, even officially on that other slide it was a vision. It's more like a dream. Because a dream brings in passion. I have this vision of this, or this dream, I should say. This dream of this flat organization which will work the same seamlessly like this small Scrum team I knew. I didn't know if it's going to work, but I've got that dream. It brings the inspiration. And people keep challenging it, but I was also saying, hey, I'll help you out. What do you need to do it? How can I support your journey? Give them a path towards a success. So, dream. Imagine an organization of your dreams. How would it look like? If there is one thing you would change, what it would be? And some of you might start with a big dream, some of you might start with a small one. For this team, my dream is that we see each other again. Or my dream is that we actually stop having those arguments. But a dream, it's at the beginning of everything. Collaboration, that's very often what people have wrong because of that history. So I want to stop here for collaboration for a while. The traditional organizations, they believe process will solve it. We just describe everything in a clear process, roles descriptions, and that's it. Everybody just needs to follow. It's the organization as a machine sort of thing. Now, because they sort of sooner or later realize it's not that machine-ish, there are people in it. Those people are not as good as machines. They don't follow exactly, and there is this ambiguity of people behavior. So they delegate. They say, you do it, or I do it. You can volunteer yourself. But there is a clear individual responsibility. There is, by the way, no collaboration happening whatsoever so far. Even if I say, I do it, and when I finish it, I pass it to you, there's not collaboration. Just a delegation or task assignment. Then if you continue, you can offer a help. That's actually a tiny step towards a collaboration. How about if I help you with that? You still own it, but can I help you? Or the other way, I still own it, but would you be so nice and help me? That's where the collaboration starts. A tiny, tiny bit. Just a little. Helping each other. And that's very difficult. So when I start, I take it for granted. I was working for a very collaborative team. We got like 20 employees at that time, so small company. With my team, I was sitting in one room. My manager always say, I don't want you to sit here and try to figure it out. We trust you're smart enough to figure out everything, but it's slow. So if you can't figure it out in like, 5-10 minutes, you ask somebody else. Maybe they know the answer right away. So I take it as normal way of working. I was after college, right? Why not? And then I went to the US for a big corporation, 7 months, internship sort of. Imagine that big corporation, cubicles. That size I could see above, but if you're a little smaller, you can. 2 by 2 meters, you sit there in that space around. Some managers always on a call. No, definitely not people from my team. We see each other with my so-called team twice per month for a status. First time when I asked somebody, hey, you were talking about this. Can you help me with that because you clearly know the answer? I realized I should never do that again because it feels like I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. So I never did that. I called to Prague and asked people if they can help me, right? The second thing, which was quite the opposite, I helped some, girl. We were going for lunches together, talking, and she was complaining she has this issue with this computer, network issue. I fixed it for her. It took me like 5 minutes, I know what to do. She sent an email to 2 of our managers above, how great it was from me and how I saved her like half an hour every day. I felt like, wow, this is really a very individual culture. People don't help each other. That's scary. I'm not sure I want to stay here. I'm here only for 7 months, but anyway, I'm not sure I want to stay, right? And then we switched to Scrum like this. So imagine those people who's been working for this corporation in that cubicle for 35 years, some of my colleagues at that time. They shift them to a meeting room, do the pair programming. That was fun. So we start helping each other after all. Now, that's still not the real collaboration. That's just the beginning. The real collaboration starts when we actually say we do it together. There is no clear ownership. We actually co-own it, co-create it. And that's hard. It's not that simple to create. I mean, it looks simple on that picture. Yeah, we do it together. But even many teams at the beginning are struggling with it. And part of it is this autonomy, right? We say like there is a space. But if there is no trust, imagine you have a team where you don't trust each other. Will you ever collaborate? I don't think so. Not even close. So teams with no trust, it's like no go. You better fix that trust. But you don't really talk about any self-organization whatsoever, any autonomy, any collaboration, because that will never work. From the other side, there is this transparency. Because if you don't have that transparency, and you don't know who is doing what, and how that's related to each other, and what's the progress, again, the collaboration will suffer. Try to organize a party, but actually be on 5 different places with no connection. Then you might end up with only chickens, and actually no wood for the fire and no drinks, because everybody thought that somebody else is doing this. So transparency, and that's scary. Very scary for some organization. People tend to hide everything. And then it's good to know that the autonomy has the boundaries. So the bigger is the trust and transparency, the bigger is the space created for that autonomy. But also the stronger our relationships. The relationship matters in all of that space. And if there are no relationships, it goes different places. So that slide is actually one of the reasons why Agile is not working that well in many environments. I have one specialty. I work with dysfunctional teams. I remember the first time I was in a bank, one of the big managers realized it, that I not only teach Agile, but I also can fix teams. So he started sending me to those, you would even call it ugly dysfunctional teams. It was a nightmare. You go there, ask people how's it going, and say, yeah, we're here, so what? We just, they pay us, we go here. And I don't like what this guy is saying. Right, like really bad place. So trust. How you can build a trust, how you can make stronger relationships. Part of a problem here, and it was resonating several times on those talks already on this conference, is relationships in virtual. They got flatter. We all live on a debt, sort of. I still remember what we did 3 years ago. Hey, that was nice. But then there are those newcomers who don't remember anything. And we don't build that trust. And that's tough. Now, I want to do a short query. How many of you are fully face-to-face at your work? About 10 maximum. How many of you are fully virtual right now? About a third, maybe fourth. Interesting. And the rest of you, I assume, would be some sort of a hybrid, whatever, right? If I ask you 2 years ago, do you believe it will happen? People say no. We need to build relationships. We need to know each other. We need to collaborate. But actually, many organizations, they stop collaborating. They start again going back to the, I help you with that, it's your task. But they're not collaborating and they're not building trust. Well then, we'll see what's going to happen. I'm not optimistic on this virtual work. I mean, it can work in some organizations, but I don't see it working widely because those relationships will suffer for many. Part of it is that culture, right? Like you have this mindset, you have this structure. When you want to change the organization, the mindset is about people behavior. That's about how do they trust each other. Do they have open collaboration? Do they have a purpose together? The bottom half, the structure, their roles, decision-making, strategies, salaries, processes, regulations. Too many people are focusing on that bottom half. I actually tend to do the opposite. In most of the organization, it's like the metaphor of this picture is this clam, like a sea creature, right? It has two halves. They cannot go far from each other. I mean, they can go a little far and then they click, and a little far and they click. They cannot go too far from each other. You would kill that organization. And there is a space, always a space, to go a little bit far and closer. So what I tend to do in most of those organizations, I tend to work on that mindset, on the people behavior, on the trust, on relationships, on openness, on transparency. Not too big differences, but step by step, start building it. And once you build it, you actually make some of those structure pieces irrelevant. They click. So very often people, when I tell them, like, we change the performance reviews, we actually get rid of them. We change the positions from, developer, tester, hardware, etc., etc., etc. We got like 20 of those to one. I want to call it team member. But it didn't went through the board. The board said it's not fancy enough, so we called it engineer. It was fancy already. So we got those engineers. It was actually a great thing. We told them, you're an engineer, you're here to solve problems. You're not here to just do one thing. Right? So we can get rid of detailed position descriptions because we create that mindset. It would not work the other way around because you would only create chaos. So in my mind, it's always like, do we have a mindset ready to pick up with those things? So do we have a mindset ready so we can get rid of goals and objectives for each individual and have them at a team level? Co-created by the team, owned by the team. Can we get rid of performance reviews and maybe put coaching for growth instead? Can we get rid of possessions and make it a general position for everybody because we are here to deliver value and we all know what that value is? But that's the structure will always follow in my mind, that little mindset. It's not a big steps, right, like that clam. It doesn't go too far, just a little. Going back to you, what was the most difficult for me was experiment. I didn't follow anything. I was coming up with this big dream and I think it should work like this. Let's try. And I was telling this to most of people around me, like, I just want you to try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll talk about it and inspect and adapt, change it. Try something else. But that's super scary for some organizations. Because when you experiment, it implies you need to be failing also. The real experiments, out of 10 things you try, only 2 could be successful. Super successful, maybe. And then when you say it to some organizations, it's very difficult. Because they say, oh, no, we can't fail, we can't fail. Well, maybe you can. That's how you learn. So that's a very difficult concept to implement in an organization. And again, without that trust and transparency, it will not work. People start hiding it. Think, yeah, it was actually a success. It just didn't work as well. Maybe not. Changing yourself, your way how you work with other people. So there are 2 types of leadership. Leader, follower. I'm here to give orders. And you're here just to follow. That's a traditional management kind of structure. And then you have this leader, where you create a partnership. Where you actually treat people as equal. There is no hierarchy in it. It's say, well, everyone can come up with an idea. Everyone is a leader. Everyone can take that step in, say, hey, I'm here to do this. Anyone want to help me with that? Anyone want to join and collaborate? But there is no appointed authority anywhere. And that's never black and white. I want to demonstrate how this concept might be difficult. So I was having a client, group of Scrum Masters, and they were solving this problem like, why the people are not growing in this organization? because we are supporting them, but they are not growing. They are staying at their whatever roles, and they don't want to become Scrum Masters. We don't have enough people who would like to become product owners. They're not growing in this organization. So I talked to this Scrum Master group who brought it back to me, explained them this topic, and say, well, think about it. There is this clear leader-follower. You're going to do this, right? There is this clear leader-leader, where you create an environment where people pick it up and coming up with their own ideas. Tell me something you did as a Scrum Masters in your last months, maybe, which was a pure 100% leader-leader. I trust you are not here. Leader-follower. But tell me something you did, which was on the other edge. And they start coming somewhere in the middle, like, I was running a retrospective, and then I suggested to the team that they should do something. And then I tell them that, me-driven. It's okay, well, that was you driven. Say, oh, that's right, I never thought about it this way. So somebody else try. And it was exactly the same. They were somewhere in the middle. They felt they need to be centric of everything. And it was very hard. Eventually they say, okay, we didn't do anything like that over there. There was nothing. It's okay, doesn't matter. Try to brainstorm. Imaginary situation, how it can look like. And eventually, step by step, we start going closer to the place. They say, oh, so maybe it would be like we just call for a conversation, for a dialogue, and only facilitate. And all of the content emerge from a team. We don't push it some direction. We don't offer ideas. Interesting. And they also start having this conversation that maybe they actually give too many directions so people don't grow to various different perspectives. So practice it. Try to come up with a situation where you can try be pure leader. Just hold the space, create an environment where people can do it on their own. It might not work all the time, but it might work in some situations. Now, maybe the other picture of that grow as a leader is this from Bill Joyner, right? When I first time been promoted, I was promoted because I was the expert. I was better at coding in C++ than my colleagues. Not all, by the way, but I was good enough to be promoted. I can advise them, I can help them, I know how to solve problems, I can teach them, I can mentor them, you name it. And I felt really good because my skills were appreciated. If you have a bigger corporation, most of the managers in a large corporation would be promoted because they can set goals, they can motivate people to go to that direction, achieve it. They didn't forget to be the experts, in ideal case, right? They are still the expert, but they cannot be experts on everything. So here is my expert body, but then I have some new skills and approaches I can use, so I can actually help others to achieve some of those goals and be successful. So that's what the people are used to. From management perspective, from leader perspective. But then there is one more. That's what we want from Scrum Masters and from Agile leaders, from anybody who is this in pure Agile space. Can you create a space where the ideas just emerge? At the beginning, I told you, everyone is a leader. It's only your decision. Do I want to step in and say, hey, I have this idea. Will you help me or not? So can you create a space where people start coming with ideas? So to give you one example where we started this, right? We actually have a lot of complaints from our employees that we don't have that many education. People are not able to go to classes because we don't cover the cost. We don't send them for trainings, and they were not happy about it. We were like saying, yeah, but those trainings are slightly different than what you do in our job. It doesn't really fit. So eventually we came up with this idea of internal education. Means just say, hell, tell the space back to each other, make it super transparent. What do I want to learn, preferably from whom? But also what I can offer to the rest of the people. And we create this sort of weird market space. We facilitate a few more things from happening, but then actually it self-facilitates. People say, hey, I'm running this workshop on Friday afternoon. Anyone want to join? And I'll do this on Monday. Do you want to join? And I only want people who already understand Java because I'm going to be talking about this specific library. Awesome. It took a long time to start. I didn't know actually if it's going to work. I hoped it would. But there were people telling me, oh, I don't know, that person should tell me, but I'm not, it will never work, they will never volunteer. Eventually they did. So that's what the catalyst will make. Create a space where it's going by itself. And then you can enjoy, but you're still the achiever. You can set the goals time to time. Like I said, hey, there is this need for education. Can you help each other? And I can advise. If they came for advice, like, I don't know how to do a workshop, and he helped me. I can send them somewhere, or I can coach them for a while so they figure that out. So this whole thing grew as a leader. We are all the experts, to some extent, to something. I'm not the expert anymore on C++. I forgot a lot. Now I tend to say I'm an expert on Scrum, or maybe some other things. Drawing pictures, right? Achievers, we all are able to set the goals. Now can we become catalysts? That's a game changer for most of the people in the organizations. The more catalysts you have, the more likely that organization can embrace this agility at the organizational level. Not implement Scrum, Kanban, or whatever. I'm not speaking about scaling framework. Those are processes. I'm speaking here about that mindset. Can we help people to become leaders, right? So my third thing, like, how can you help the others to become leaders and support this we culture, this collaboration? Because that's the key. If people can collaborate, we do it together, then great things start emerging. Creative things start emerging. And can we do that? What I need to do to build leaders around me, what I need to do to hold that space, be disattached to the details, etc. So, I had those 3 tips. Agile is not your goal. Agile at the team level, Agile at the scaled level, Agile at the organizational level. I don't care about those. But it's the way how you might achieve some of your goals. Be more flexible, innovative, fast learning. That's actually how we measure the success. Not how many retrospectives do we have and did we apply Scrum, but are we more innovative? Business-wise, did our customers apply those innovations to be more successful with their businesses? Are we more flexible? How long it takes us to build a team? And can we fast learn? How long it takes to get a newcomer to the team and grow them? Leaders need to change first, so stop waiting for somebody else. You are the leaders. You need to change first, become a role model. And it's okay not to be perfect. Just be consistent, be true to whatever you want to achieve. Listen for that feedback. Iterate. And finally, help others to become leaders. Support that we culture, this collaboration, co-creation. That's the motivation for everything at the end of the day. Become a catalyst. So, feel free to connect with me over the LinkedIn or whatever else. And I have those 3 books to give away. So I thought maybe I will give it away to somebody. Do we have a mic? Who will tell us their dream for the organization. Somebody who wants to become a leader, who wants to step away and say, hey, I have this dream. I want to achieve this. Somebody courageous enough. You got one over here? Come here, so they see you. Yeah.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Okay, so I have a dream for my organization that all people will be leaders and we will communicate on the way leader to leader, and people will be courage to talk about their fears.
Thank you very much. I'll send it later. Do we have another volunteer?
I can give a book to one of the volunteers, maybe. That would be nice. So I have a dream to be in the organization where I can just cry with all of the people from the top management in front of their faces and wouldn't be afraid. I will take from the volunteers.
My dream in my organization is to build trust to each other, yes, and in that way give possibility to experiment, yes, learn by experimentation and failures, of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.